Hi, everyone, and welcome to God's Plan, Your Part, a podcast where our goal is to read the entire Bible in a year, seeking to understand God's plan of redemption while discovering daily and practically your part in it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to God's Plan, Your Part. Today we are looking at Numbers chapter 21 and 22. Basically, we're going to get closer and closer to the Promised Land, and in chapter 22, we're going to get a story that will remind you of Shrek, possibly.
Yes. I did not know that was coming.
I can talk. I love to talk.
Keep going.
No. So, what sticks out to you, Jenny? Like, what do you want to do? We want to jump right into Balaam and the donkey, or do we want to?
No. First, I'd like to start out with I was supposed to read chapter 21, and I just couldn't. So there's that. It was horrible.
We have a confession.
There's a lot of names going on in here. But the one thing that I noticed was in chapter 21, verse 4 to verse 9. Once again, everybody's complaining, everybody's fussing. They think that their food is worthless, which is hilarious because this food that is so worthless was not very worthless when they first received it. So I think they become very entitled to what they feel like they need or want, I suppose. And because of that, they start getting bit by a bunch of snakes, which is terrifying. And all of them start to die. And I feel like I've heard in the past that when they were to look at the snake in order to be healed or not die, that is like a direct correlation to, like, if you look at an ambulance, there's like the little staff with the snake on it. Is that?
Yeah, the staff with the snake is like the medical insignia.
Yeah.
That is a callback to Numbers 21, actually.
Mm-hmm. So crazy.
So, and what's really interesting about Numbers 21 is if you imagine this happening, right? So these people are getting bit by snakes all over the place. They raise this thing up on a pole, and the thing that is raised up on the pole ends up being the thing that saves their lives. This is another allusion to Christ. I mean, whether it is intended that way or whether it is just secondhand useful that way, here you have an object that is hung up in view of everybody, and everyone who, it actually says, verse 9, so Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole, and if the serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. And so basically, this bronze serpent is providing temporary salvation from snake bites. In the same way that they looked to the bronze serpent and lived, we look to Jesus and live when we, in fact, deserve death. So this is a cool story. It always reminds me of Jesus. A sad thing about this story, we will read later on in 2 Kings chapter 18, that by the time of King Hezekiah, the people of Israel are worshiping this bronze serpent as a god.
I actually was just thinking, this kind of sounds similar to the whole calf situation, because they were pretty attracted to some other thing to save them. I was like, I wonder why that didn't get considered to be an idol, but sure enough, give it time, it will.
And actually, I should have mentioned this. Jesus himself refers to this story as an allusion to himself.
Well, then we move into, after that, I don't know if you want to speak into the next section, but I did notice we're starting to see the Israelites coming up upon more and more groups of people and kings in their kingdoms, and requesting permission to go through. And so far, the answer has always been no. And in one instance, well, two instances, the Israelites defeat the kingdoms that they were not granted permission to go through.
What actually got my attention in reading over these, just chapter 21, is they were rebelling against God, but they actually start to repent. They repent for their sin with the serpents. They start to look to God for victory over their enemies. Their enemies are attacking them. Because
interesting.
They're
not just coming
they're
upon them.
famous at this point for being a powerful nation that God has delivered, and so people start to attack them, and God allows them to prevail in these battles. And so we're getting a taste of what is to come, in that they're going to conquer vast amounts of people.
Well, and because of their ability to conquer, that's what brings us to chapter 22, because the king Balak, what is he?
Balak.
The king of, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it Moab? Moab? No. Yeah. Moab was overcome with
Yeah,
the
it's like
fear of the people
it's
of
like an
Israel.
alliance with Moab and Midian.
Yeah. Okay. So regardless, he's becoming fearful of these people and is grasping at straws and is asking a man named Balaam to come and curse the people of God so that they cannot defeat him and his people. So that's kind of crazy, and the whole story is just so bizarre. I don't totally get it. Balaam, I always I knew the name and I knew he had something to do with a donkey, but I didn't realize that he was like this weird wizard.
Yeah, he is. He's like a Mesopotamian priest. There is actually archaeological evidence that supports that Balaam was a real person. There are ancient inscriptions that have been discovered. They were discovered in the 60s. That are kind of like these inscriptions on like a pole. There's a lot of stuff like that declaring about Balaam, who was able to speak with the gods. And so Balaam was known as a very prominent seer, wizard kind of guy. And Balak is like, hey, I need all the help I can get. I'm going to go down to this wizard and get him to... I'm going to go see a wizard. He's going to help me defeat these people. And so Balaam would have been pretty widely renowned and would have been seen as very powerful. One of the funny things about Numbers chapter 22 is God is basically making him look like a fool. So this guy who would have had all this respect and power and authority is being corrected by a donkey.
Yeah, but even in a lot of ways too, because he's supposed to be getting paid a lot of money to come and do this, which is enticing to him. But not only is he going to be ridiculed via his donkey, he also has to say, no, I'm not coming because the God of the Israelites told me not to.
Yeah.
So there's a genuine fear there, I think, of God, but also just that's so embarrassing.
So another interesting thing is this guy was widely renowned for his ability to talk to the gods. So he's talking to spirits all the time. But what's very interesting about Numbers 22 is the wisest character is the donkey, and the donkey sees the presence of the angel of the Lord 3 different times. And Balaam has no idea. And so this guy's supposed to be spiritually in tune, and he doesn't know a thing.
But isn't that kind of cool though? So Balaam is this super corrupt weird guy, but also recognizes I'm not messing around with that God because that one is super powerful, super strong, to the point where when he actually realizes that the angel of the Lord is standing in the road, he oh my gosh, if I would have known you were there, I wouldn't have even thought twice.
What a goofy guy.
Yeah, isn't that so strange? So he's still super corrupt and almost shackled to these evil spirits and things, but still recognizes that God's more powerful anyway.
So Balaam is a prophet for hire. God comes to him and says, hey,
That's a good way
listen,
to put it.
you are not going to go curse my people. They're my people. You're not allowed to curse them. You're not allowed to go. And so Balaam yields to God. He respects God, and he says, hey, I can't go. But Balak then is like, fine, I'll send princes this time. And the princes are going to come with their entourages and offer you even more. And Balak's like, well, I could be persuaded. And so God, I think, is like, fine. If you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to allow you to look like a total fool. So if you want to go, you can go. But you are not allowed to say anything bad about my people. Unfortunately, the way that this plan is written, we split this story up.
Oh, no, it's kind of a bummer because it seems like it comes to a close. You're like, well, what comes of it? Which we'll get to tomorrow. But
there is more to come of it. But Balaam, in our story, does not look like a brilliant genius.
I can just imagine this really well-renowned, people really know who he is. He's some big dude, and this stupid donkey just keeps shoving him into the wall.
Talk about how the donkey, he's not surprised at all.
Yeah, that was really strange. So when the donkey speaks to Balaam after he slaps it, disciplines it for not moving forward, the donkey turns around and speaks to him and is in surprise, why are you doing this to me? Have I not been faithful to you all these years? But what was odd was that Balaam didn't even bat an eye at it. It was of no surprise to him that this donkey was just talking. Because as a reader, you're like, holy crap, the donkey just talked. We have a Shrek moment, like you were saying earlier. But to Balaam, it was not weird. Because I would assume demonic presence is nothing foreign to him.
Yeah, he's pretty
And-
used to talking to spirits.
Blech. That's so gross. I don't like that at all.
Well, I mean, in this case, the spirit's actually helpful. Like,
I know,
hey.
but that's pretty terrifying. That's just like a comfortable thing. Like, no, thank you. Because when do you ever hear of any other instance where, like, someone hears the voice of God and they're just like, oh yeah, cool. No, they usually like fall on their face or like completely terrified.
Yeah, he doesn't have respect for the Lord.
Yeah. I mean, he does, but he doesn't. It's weird. He's a strange individual.
So it is interesting. Like, we haven't called this out a lot. We probably should
He's
have.
like Magneto.
Oh my goodness.
That's yep. I was just thinking like, who's like a good guy, but not really a good guy.
He's like an anti-hero.
Yes.
We should have called this out a little bit more, but there is a lot of archaeological evidence for some of the things that we've been reading.
Well,
and
you can talk about
this
that.
is
'Cause that's above and beyond.
This is
me.
just one of those instances where we have actually discovered things that support the fact that Balaam is in fact a real prophet, a real person who could speak to spirits. And people recorded it and chiseled it into stone, and we found it in the 60s. So it's pretty cool. So what do you think is a good takeaway for today?
What do you think is a good takeaway for today?
I think it is... We'll see this story play out a little bit more. But I think we want to serve God for the right reasons. I think that's very, very important. And so we see here Balaam is willing to listen to the Lord, but only until somebody else offers him more and something better. And so I think it's a reminder of how easily we can drift into deception, how easily we are deceived and we don't even know it, and also how easily we can drift into idolatry, like how easy we can just place something that is not God in the place where God belongs.
There's so many highs and lows with that same thing. And even in this story, because you're like, oh, yes, he's like, listen to the Lord. And then 2 seconds later, like, okay, maybe not.
Actually, I can make this even more pointed. Here is somebody who is spiritually astute and spiritually aware. So this is not just some goofy dude. This guy is like a top-notch guy that is very aware of spiritual things. And yet before God, he's like a total fool. And it just makes me think of, like, I mean, you can go a very direct route and you can say, like, yeah, serving any God but God is dumb. There are many people who will try to teach you like new age kind of philosophies, or many people who will do like this. It's called syncretism, where you do like a little bit of Jesus, a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Hinduism, like whatever you want, just whatever piece of God you want to celebrate, go ahead and celebrate. It's all a lie. And so here you have this dude who's pretty spiritually in tune, and yet he's a total fool because he doesn't worship the one true God. And we'll see this play out where God just kind of enjoys mocking this guy. First of all, with a talking donkey. So it's funny. I remember like the flannel graph story, like, wow, donkeys talk. And that's like not the point of the story at all.
Right. Well, you did say he was the smartest character. She was the smartest character. I love how it was a female donkey, of course.
So I think just a reminder, like, don't put something in God's place that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
Particularly money, like Balaam. I think that's pretty easy to see. But there are many, many things that want to compete with the Lord. So be obedient to him. We talked about that yesterday. So we'll be back tomorrow with some more of this Balaam story. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to our take on God's Word. Stick around and listen to the Word on the second part of the podcast. Before we get in there, we just want to remind you, you can connect with us at any time on social media and YouTube at God's Plan, Your Part. Also, we are a listener-supported podcast, so if you ever want to help us out with the ministry that we're doing, you can do that by clicking the link in our description. And now, here's the reading for today. Numbers chapter 21. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who had lived in the Negeb, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord and said, if you will indeed give this people into my hand, then I will devote their cities to destruction. And the Lord heeded the voice of Israel and gave over the Canaanites, and they devoted them and their cities to destruction. So the name of the place was called Hormah. From Mount Hor they set out by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient along the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that the people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten when he sees it shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. And the people of Israel set out and camped in Oboth. And they set out from Oboth and camped at Abiram, in the wilderness that is opposite Moab toward the sunrise. From there they set out and camped in the valley of Zered. From there they set out and camped on the other side of Arnon, which is in the wilderness that extends from the border of the Amorites, for Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, Waheb in Sarpha in the valleys of Arnon, and the slope of the valleys that extends in the seat of Ar and leans in the border of Moab. And from there they continued to Beer. That is well of which the Lord said to Moses, Gather the people together, so that I may give them water. Then Israel sang this song, Spring up, O well, sing to it, the well that the princes made, that the nobles of the people dug, with the scepter and with their staffs. And from the wilderness they went on to Matana, and from Matana to Nahil, and from Nahil to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley lying in the region of Moab, by the top of Pisgah, that looks down on the desert. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of a well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. He gathered all his people together and went out against Israel to the wilderness and came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. And Israel defeated him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as the Ammonites, and the border of the Ammonites was strong. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel settled in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and taken all his land out of his hand as far as Arnon. Therefore the ballad singers say, Come to Heshbon, let it be built, let the city of Sihon be established. For fire came out from Heshbon, flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar of Moab, and swallowed the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Shamash! He has made his sons fugitives. He has daughters captives, to an Amorite king, Sihon. So we overthrew them. Heshbon as far as Dibon perished, and we laid waste as far as Nophah. Fire spread as far as Medeba. Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorites, and Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they captured its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Then they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan came out against them, he and his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, Do not fear him, for I have given him into your hand, and all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So they defeated him and his sons and all his people until he had no survivor left, and they possessed his land.
Then the people of Israel set out and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was in great dread of the people, because they were many. Moab was overcome with fear of the people of Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, This horde will now lick up all that is around us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. So Balak the son of Zippor, who was the king of Moab at the time, sent messengers to Balaam the son of Beor at Pethor, which is near the river in the land of the people of Amal, to call him, saying, Behold, a people has come out to Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they are dwelling opposite me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out from the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand. And they came to Balaam and gave him Balak's message. And he said to them, Lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you, as the Lord speaks to me. So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. And God came to Balaam and said, Who are these men with you? And Balaam said to God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, who has sent me, saying, Behold, a people has come out of Egypt, and it covers the face of the earth. Now come, curse them for me. Perhaps I shall be able to fight against them and drive them out. God said to Balaam, You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. So Balaam rose in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, Go to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. So the princes of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. Once again Balak sent princes, more in number and more honorable than these. And they came to Balaam and said to him, Thus says Balak the son of Zippor, Let nothing hinder you from coming to me, for I will surely do you a great honor. And whatever you say to me, I will do. Come, curse this people for me. But Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. So you, too, please stay here tonight, that I may know what more the Lord will say to me. And God came to Balaam that night and said to him, If the men have come to call you, rise, go with them, but only do what I tell you. So Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went with the princes of Moab. But God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in his way as an adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. And the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road, with a drawn sword in his hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the road and went into the field. And Balaam struck the donkey to turn her into the road. The angel of the Lord stood in the narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed against the wall and pressed Balaam's foot against the wall, so he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place, where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, so he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to him, What have I done to you, that you would strike me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you. And the donkey said to Balaam, Am I not your donkey on which you have ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way? And he said, No. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down and fell on his face. And the angel of the Lord said to him, Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to oppose you, because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside before me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely just now I would have killed you, and let her live. Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know that you stood in the road against me. Now therefore, if it is evil in your sight, I will turn back. And the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men, but speak only the words that I tell you. So Balaam went on with the princes of Balak. When Balak heard that Balaam had come, he went out to meet him in the city of Moab, on the border formed by the Arnon, at the extremity of the border. And Balak said to Balaam, Did I not send to you to call you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you? Balaam said to Balak, Behold, I have come to you. Have I now any power of my own to speak anything? The word that God puts in my mouth, that must I speak. Then Balaam went to Balak, and they came to Hazoth. And Balak sacrificed oxen and sheep, and sent for Balaam and for the princes who were with him. And in the morning Balak took Balaam, and brought him up to Bamoth Baal, and from there he saw a fraction of the people.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplанyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.